All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us for round two of Elite Racing League's podcast. The host, I am Rowdy Zelensky, and here beside me this week is Doot from Project Cars and Mega Driver from the NASCAR Heat 2 series. Chad is unfortunately on vacation and on a honeymoon or whatever we want to call it for him. Whatever he's getting a little bang bang going on over there, so we're good with that.
Probably, probably,
Oh, we already know it, so we're good. He's
probably
having a good
no.
time. He's probably not gonna hate me. He's probably gonna hate me for that one, but oh well.
He'll
So,
get over it.
all right, what do we want to start with first, guys? Do we want to do project cars or do we want to do NASCAR Heat?
We were really thinking about Project Cars 2 with all the different series on there. I'd like
Yeah,
to start with that if we can.
yeah, that's awesome. So, Project Cars 2, do you want to start with the Formula C series?
Yeah, dude, you
Yeah,
know a lot about that.
Yeah. So, the last race that you guys just did, I cannot say the name, so you might as well just say it for me.
Aschersleben.
Yeah, Osterschleven. No, I think it's
Yeah,
close
it's
enough.
a German course. It's it it was a really bumpy track. I was really surprised by how little traction the Formula C had
Which
on
track?
that track. Aschersleben A course. So it's kind of like a mostly
Oh, I
used
gotta
for
think about.
touring car and F3
I'm not
cars,
sure if I'm
but
familiar with that one, but Formula C is different on this game, right?
than the previous Formula C car in Project Cars 1. Yeah, it's a little bit different setup. Like you can see the aerodynamics is a little bit different than the previous Formula C car, but it's a little like it's down about 50 horsepower. I don't know what they were thinking there when they thought that was a good idea, but the car is really light and really balanced. But despite that fact, Oschersleben was like still quite the battle. Just tuning wise, I spent probably 2 hours Monday, just getting my bump stops and stuff kind of figured out, so I get a little bit more traction going through, especially some of the high speed stuff. So you're literally skating over bumps and curbs and going back and forth. So I was pretty confident going into qualifying until actually qualifying started, and I was a total of like 1.2 seconds off the pace. So that wasn't that great. Oh no, 1.6 seconds off. But as the race actually started, I was able to make up a place at the start against Dirt Racer. He was a guy that qualified third in the race and way too fast qualified, like 1.6 seconds ahead of me. But the race was pretty slow to start. Once I got past dirt, uh, way too fast and stay down, like literally just took off. Like I was pushing 100%, the whole time trying to catch them, and they just kept pulling and pulling and pulling. So I was like, okay, I got to kind of, just settle for third because maybe I think I'm like 3 points ahead of way too fast right now, and I was maybe 10 points ahead of stay down. So I was like, well, really, the best I can hope for is for stay down to get ahead of way too fast and maybe, just damage limitation and hopefully maintain my lead, or, like limit the amount of damage I'm going to lose. And luckily, stay down being stay down, like he, just jumps in a car and he finds pace like halfway through the race and was able to take the fight to way too fast. And he got ahead of way too fast, and I was like, okay, that's good for me. I guess I'll just keep my head down and go through the last, 30 minutes at that point. At that point in time, they must have been almost like 20 seconds up the road. Near the later stages of the race, I think there was maybe, I want to say like 5 minutes left. Way too fast. Took a little bit of front wing damage. I noticed that he kind of dropped off the back of stay down. And I was like, oh, well, this is my chance. I got to push like 100% here because I was just kind of doing regular race pace laps and I was watching the gap and it wasn't going down at all. And I was just like, oh my God, like this guy's got damage and I still can't catch him. So I was just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. I could see my tires were overheating and my engine was actually almost at 50% damage because I was running such a tight radiator strategy and you're trying to, just claw back a couple of tenths. And I pushed and I pushed and I caught up to the back of him, and we had probably like a 4-lap battle. And eventually, I guess I kind of got lucky, and he understeered kind of across me into the dirt, and I kind of waited for him because I was like, I didn't know, like, if I kind of had pushed him off, or if he had kind of just run off wide, and I waited for him. He's like, no, man, just go. He's like, that was my fault. And I was lucky because it was pretty much like one lap after that, and that was the last lap of the race. It was a hell of a battle, and I got kind of lucky. Despite being really far off the pace, I was still able to kind of nab second. So I believe I'm still in the championship lead, and Stay Down should probably be a couple of points behind me, and then maybe Way Too Fast is maybe a point behind him. Going into round 3, we'll be at Brands Hatch on Tuesday, and that one's going to be a double header, so it'll be 2 30-minute races. And race number 2 will have the clear random transition sync to race. So we'll have a couple of changes of weather, and I imagine that's going to produce some pretty good footage, and hopefully some really good racing. And especially with all the runoff that track has, we should be able to push 100% and not worry about having to bounce off a curb at Oschersleben or hit a couple of cones or something like that.
Right.
Cool. I guess the one thing, you guys are 2 rounds in now of this series. So far, who have you seen that probably is your biggest competition? I know you kind of talked about the Way Too Fast, and who was the other guy?
Stay Down.
Stay Down.
Dylan.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
who else do you see as competition, or are those basically the 2 people that you see as competition right now?
Those guys are definitely the pace setters. I have some work cut out for me this week trying to find out what I'm missing in my tune. I've been kind of like doing a little bit of research, to see what guys are running, on YouTube for their world record attempts, and they're running really weird, unorthodox setups and extremely high downforce. And I feel like it's like the high downforce that's just holding me back versus Stay Down and Way Too Fast, because he kind of let slip what he was running for downforce in the qualifying, and he was running probably 25% less wing, yet he was running still a second and a half quicker than me. And I just I don't know if it's something in the chassis or something in the aero balance, but they are definitely a step ahead of me. I'd say on par with me right now is Dirt, but he just moved over to a T150 wheel versus a controller, so he's kind of in that acclimation stage. But his pace is pretty much right on par with mine, if not a little bit quicker. He qualified, I think, like 4/10 ahead of me at Oschersleben, but I was just able to keep it clean and consistent, and not make too many mistakes that weren't a big waste of time. Other than that, of course, Chad, he is very, very quick. I imagine when he gets back, he'll probably ace the oval that we got coming up, I believe, after Brands Hatch. And Renee is usually pretty quick, but he kind of suffers from a little bit of leg issues. Relics is really, really consistent, almost to a fault. He almost needs to be a little bit more aggressive and try to take a couple more positions here and there, but he's such a clean, respectful driver. It's kind of like almost beneath him to try to bully his way up the inside. He'd rather take it in a clean pass. But we got a couple extra guys coming in next week. I've been kind of just trying to bolster our numbers a little bit. TWS, our former Formula Renault 3.5 champion, it will maybe be coming out for a couple of appearances. I raced against him in the Formula Renault a few seasons back, and he was just consistently, a lot, just as quick as I was, but just a lot more consistent in the race. He just seemed to avoid the carnage, while I almost seemed to be a magnet. So I'm kind of hoping he's going to just really, jump in and be able to really mount a challenge. If not, we get all his tunes sorted out for next season. Other than that, everybody else hasn't seemed to quite acclimate to the car, or haven't quite figured out their tunes quite yet. I usually hold kind of like a mid-season test and tune for everybody to kind of, if they, are really that far off the pace and they want to be, on the pace, they'll usually show up for that, and usually give them a hand with their tunes and stuff like that. And then everybody usually, you'll see by the end of the season, pretty much everybody is almost in the title fight. At least that's the way it was like in the last couple of Formula C seasons. first and the one in Project Cars 2 and in Project Cars 1. It was always near the end of the season that you really seen guys like, figuring out the car, and then all of a sudden, you had, 3 more race winners, like new race winners at the end of the season that we, weren't, barely even in the mid pack at the start.
Yeah, that's awesome. Formula C runs on Tuesdays, right?
Yeah, Tuesdays at 7:30
Okay, cool.
Eastern.
I will maybe make a couple appearances here and there then.
Yeah, the racing's really tight. The car's a little slow, but that just gives you like more, almost time to like line up that perfect apex, and gives everybody a little bit extra, reaction margin, especially when dealing with cars around you.
I have to figure out how to run a controller again.
It's pretty easy to drive even on controller. I found the car was like even easier to drive in like the wet than it was in the dry. It seems to like grip so much in the dry that you're constantly correcting with the steering wheel if you have a really short steering ratio.
Yeah, I have to figure it out. I'm trying to get an adapter so I can try to use my wheel. So it'll be interesting once I get on there and get everything set up fully for PS4. So
Yeah,
going
hopefully enjoy it.
into, do you want to go into the next series, or is there any updates otherwise for Formula C?
Nope. We got the oval coming up, I think, a week after next. We're going to be
Yes.
running at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That one's going to be fun. We did a little bit of a test and tune on that, and the cars are so much fun. Like you get such a huge aero push from like the guy behind you, and obviously you get a big draft push, but you can feel it being in like the lead car. In like a train of like 3 or 4 cars, like the guy in front, you feel like you're being pushed like literally forward. You got to like lift early and dive in and try to scrub off some speed in a different way, because the guys are just like clearing so much air out of your diffuser. It's like your aero is like twice as efficient as it normally would be. It's crazy.
I did a test with the Formula C, maybe the first test that, since Chad had developed a package, we only had 3 of us, but I was really eager to see what would happen if you could get 6 or 8 of us together and really magnify that drafting effect. It was already fun just with the 3 of us. If you can hold your ground, if you can hang on to your car and get organized, you can run anybody down.
Yeah, we did a little bit of a like open lobby test with like just a bunch of random guys and some league members, and we had I think like 12 cars in a pack, and obviously the first lap was kind of carnage because there's some of the amateurs and real overly aggressive guys kind of take each other out, but after that, yeah, it's just madness. Like the packs almost kind of split apart, but then like a guy in the backpack will get like a huge run, and he almost bridges that gap between the back group, and then the back group catches the aero push from the guys before, and then like it's like 3 wide, 2 wide going into every corner, and as long as everybody's really aware of the guy beside them, it makes really fun racing. As long granted that everybody gives space, but me and Chad were having a pretty good little battle there, because he obviously gets like such a huge aero push going in there, you can almost like dive towards the inside, and as long as buddy sees you, it makes for a hell of a good line transition going in through the first couple of corners, because you go in so tight, you got to take the second one wide, and then he takes the optimal line for the second one and gets a run on you. It's gonna be a hell of a pack race. I'm definitely gonna be streaming that one.
Cool. All right, so IndyCar series. We just got done with, it was, shoot, I just had it pulled up. Silverstone, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Silverstone.
Give us a recap of Silverstone.
Silverstone was a really tense race, especially at Ganassi, because we pretty much knew that Penske guys are almost the oval specialists. They just seem to dominate. They have a lot more experience, and probably just know the strategies a lot better than we do. So we knew that at Silverstone we had to do really good. So going into it, Frankie knew that he needed to qualify good and stay ahead of Stay Down, because Stay Down has pretty much had a huge resurgence since kind of Chad kind of took that points hit, So it's pretty much a three-way fight going into Texas after that race, because as soon as the race kind of started a little shakily, we had a little guy kind of lagging out, but he didn't kind of realize that he was lagging and kind of causing accidents. So
Yeah.
he kind of got into Frankie. Frankie qualified really well up in the top four, but kind of got swallowed up at the start because he was running hard tires up front and then the soft tires in the rear. So you kind of have that, predictable understeer aspect we were kind of chatting about a little bit earlier. He he had to go in for damage, and pretty much from there it was like a recovery drive. I believe he managed to pull off third place, so he's pretty much still in it. Granted, he can get a good oval result, but for me and the rest of Team Ganassi, we kind of had a pretty big fight on our hands. Everybody else, I guess, ran softs, and I guess we were really the only team to run hards. And at the starts, oh my God, it felt like you were just kind of a fish in a barrel. Everybody was just shooting around you. But once everyone's tires kind of started to wear off, and during the end of the first stint, we made up a bunch of time. Guys were obviously spinning out here and there because their soft tires were worn a little too much, and the balance of their car was thrown off, especially as you kind of go through that Maggots and Beckett's kind of complex. The car would be all over the place, but you needed to maintain maximum speed going in through there. So on the back, I believe it's like the hanger straight, you get your maximum tow down there. But everybody else was kind of having a little bit of issues. We kind of made up some ground. Then at the midpoint, when everyone changed for tires, there was a little bit more carnage, and a safety car came out, and we decided. I think me and Chaos Spun decided to go on softs for the last 8 laps, and Frankie and Relics decided to go on to the hards again, and we managed to have a really good recovery drive. Frankie, I believe, finished third, and then Relics finished, I believe, behind me and Phil. So we, I believe, scored fourth down into, or third to seventh overall, and then Chad was behind us. Chad kind of had like a late accident, so that kind of, I think, threw off his title charge he kind of had going into there, which is unfortunate for him, but it's great for the league because now we got like a 3-way battle going into the last race. It should be almost like quite the race of attrition. Hopefully everybody keeps it clean, and we all is clean, fair battle to the end, and there's no it's not just a big crash fest because everybody's trying so hard and everyone's got like so much riding on the line. I know IndyCar has always almost went down to the line with our league, but this season seems very interesting and quite intense.
Awesome. So Texas is the last track. What are some of the things you're working on to prepare for that track?
One thing we've noticed since the last update is there's no more push to pass in qualifying. When the first season we did ovals in Project Cars 2 for IndyCar, you would go out and you would have, I believe, 3 laps worth of boost, and then you could get your fastest lap times in there. But now the car just goes out and runs at a different boost level during practice and qualifying, so you get 740 horsepower in practice and qualifying, but then you're bumped down to a mere 660 for the race. So it completely throws off your gearbox and your aero and everything. Like, obviously you're going to run a slightly different gearbox for the race, to compensate for the extra fuel and stuff. But, now you can't even, practice, race laps with your race gearbox in a practice session because it's running you at 740 horsepower and you need it to run you at 660. And it's really hard just to, run a 10 lap race and then restart and tune a little bit and run a 10 lap race, tune a little bit. It's so time consuming. So we've been, trying to kind of find a way around that by adjusting just the boost level in the car as we go for practice. We can actually tune with a full load of fuel and then get our gears set up so we're getting, the maximum amount of power. going through Texas, because obviously that is such a busy track. It's just constant turns and turns and turns. Like I feel like my arms are gonna fall off after you do 50 laps, because it's just work, 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 like constantly turning and constantly turning in. And obviously with that, you have a huge tire overheating issues. We obviously have to build even more tunes, because Texas is the only race that qualifying is during the day, and then the race starts at I think 2200 hours. So the overall track conditions are completely different, and then obviously the track evolves a lot differently as you go through the night, and as the track wraps in. So it's like you almost kind of need that ultimate compromise, so you're getting good grip, but you're not going to overheat your tires in the later part of the stint, and aggressive enough of a kind of like a a wedge that you're going to be able to ride through those corners, but not using up your tire more than everybody else. And then on top of that, you got to make sure your downforce levels are set that once you're in a pack of 4 or 5 guys, you're not going to just have a huge aero push going into one of the turns and just bounce off the wall, or effectively ruining your race if you're in a bad spot. And even furthermore, Texas is terrible, because as soon as you spin, you're easily a lap down, and then if you're 2 laps down and a caution comes out, you may as well just park it in the pits, because your race is over at that point. It's a really high stress track, and for me, not being an oval guy, it's even more high stress, especially being the last race of the season.
Yeah, so with it being the last race of the season, who do you think is going to be the champion?
Frankie, of course, my teammate. He's gonna fucking rock it. He's gonna take out Chad and stay down, and put his stamp on the ovals, even though he's more of a circuit specialist.
Well, I was going to say, since Chad is probably the more circuit specialist, would you say he doesn't have the chance then?
You know what? Chad is probably, this is like his redemption right now, because it's been a couple of times now that Stay Down has he won the Indy 500 pretty much 2 years in a row now, and the first year was especially painful because it was like a last lap. Basically took the trophy out of Chad's hand going into the last lap past him, going across the finish line. And then this season, Chad kind of, I think, didn't follow his strategy 100%, and Stay Down was able to win by a few laps and save some fuel. But Chad is probably he's probably the dark horse for this one. He's probably going to be ultra aggressive, and I imagine he's going to be running 4 or 5 hours of practice once he gets back from his honeymoon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chad won't take it lightly at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like in a video arcade, playing the old on the old one there, beating kids and stealing their quarters.
I think I heard he took his PS4 on vacation, just didn't tell nobody.
Yeah, got an extra seat for it and said it was his kid.
Yeah, exactly, just so he get that extra practice in there.
Yeah, I told him to, race the food trolley down, like, the hotel hallways, just so he's, making sure he's keeping his apexes nice and sharp.
Doing laps around the pool sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Any other updates from the IndyCar? Is IndyCar, are you guys going to start up when the new season for that, since we are going into the last race? Or is there any talk
I believe
yet?
we're going to have an off week after Texas, probably just so everybody can kind of get all, tuned up and get all the teams sorted out. I believe the teams are mostly figured out for next season, but I imagine there's probably just a couple last entries and stuff like that that'll kind of get allocated, and we'll have maybe a little test and tune, optional thing, and then we'll probably be starting Sugo, or is it? Yeah, Sugo, Friday after next.
Okay, so basically a week off, and then back to it.
Yeah, we usually try to have a week off
Okay.
between seasons, just so everybody's kind of able to make sure their teammates are all committed for the full season, and maybe get a little bit tuning in. Make sure you got any sort of gremlins from last season figured out.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to tell Chad he needs to add dates to his frickin' schedules.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably it's a little bit behind with him on vacation.
Oh yeah. Well, like I'm trying to figure out all the dates, and I'm looking at the schedules. I'm like, shoot, I can't don't know when they race this race. So
Yeah,
definitely gonna tell Chad he
yeah, I
needs to add
mean,
dates.
yeah, get on them for both that. Get the
Yeah.
website a little bit more up to date.
Well, I do the iRacing part, so because I know
Oh,
Chad's pretty
okay.
busy, so I try to help him with that part.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm almost like technologically illiterate when it comes to website, so I'd probably do more damage than
Good.
adding any
Oh,
sort of input or help.
it's a lot easier once it's built. Trust me.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah, it's just probably inputting stats and stuff.
Oh yeah, super easy. I think we may have lost Mega.
I'm still here,
Oh,
waiting on you guys.
awesome. Any other updates from IndyCar? Or are we good?
No, I think that's everything.
All right, we're gonna jump over to NASCAR Heat 2 League Series with with Mega then. So where do you want to
Sounds
start,
good.
Mega?
If you can hear me okay,
Yep.
you can hear me okay. We are currently in the playoffs for all three series. I don't really remember. We run so much now, I couldn't even tell you what track we ran on Saturday. I'd have to think about that. But the series are either ending a round or starting the next round of the playoffs. Playoffs are a little bit complicated because it's based on the number of points you have built up over the season from running well and winning races versus what you are accumulating during the playoff races themselves. You get stage points for finishing the top 10 and approximately the first quarter and the second quarter of the race. And I believe that I'm comfortable myself. I'm comfortable in most of the series. I would have to ask Chad exactly where we are. I'm not really relevant in the championship race. I mostly run it to have fun, and I'm not too worried about points. All three series are a lot of fun though.
Yeah. So no, the most recent race that you guys did was last night. Trucks at Bristol. It was the first race of the second round. So how did that go for you guys?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
What was your last question? What?
Um, so round two was Bristol, or round two of the playoffs. First race was Bristol. So how did that go for you guys?
Oh, that Bristol truck race. That was just last night. The trucks in Bristol, they have a tremendous amount of understeer. You really have to wait to get back to the throttle. I really struggled. Old man, or Tyler Riggs, as you might know him, led late and actually lagged out of the race with less than 5 laps to go, leading to Storm Chaser winning the race with a little bit of controversy. There was a lot of contact for the lead with how tight the track is and how it's really difficult to pass cleanly. There was a lot of bumping and banging for the lead. I didn't see a lot of it. You may want to talk to either Tyler Riggs or Alec Ballvans about that. But there was plenty of drama, and I would assume that the Cup Series will be running Bristol on Friday, this coming Friday as well. And Bristol is the little half-mile concrete high banked track that's really famous for its night race in August. One of the best tracks in the states. One of the most entertaining short tracks in the states. I forget exactly who's in the playoff grid. I'd have to look that up myself. But there's going to be, even without Chad there's still going to be an amazing amount of competition on Friday.
Yeah, definitely been. I've ran, Bristol on iRacing and have a win there. Bristol's probably one of my favorite tracks. To say that because it's one of those tracks that, like you said, bump and run and all that. You get that real old style short track racing that you see. So that's awesome to see. With that being said, is that's a lot of these guys. Do a lot of the guys from Truck race in the Cup Series?
Yes, I think that you would have almost everybody who's able to run Tuesday will also be there on Friday. Of course, with the exception of Chad with his vacation. Haven Man, his name is Josh Personette. He's gone on vacation too. So there's a couple of big contenders out. But yes, there's a lot of crossover between the Tuesday roster and the Friday roster.
Yeah. So with that being like, do you think some of these like flares or these kind of temperature or tempers. Do you think it's going to cross over the Cup Series Bristol this week?
I definitely think so. It's not going to be like somebody holding a grudge race to race. We all kind of we've already established our opinions of each other, and some of them weren't very favorable. Friday's race is going to be even crazier because you can make both the top and the bottom work depending upon your setup in the Cup car. The Cup car is a lot looser. The track is tight. The car is honestly bipolar at Bristol. Once you get your setup in, it can be your car can behave totally different from the start of a run to the end of a run. There's going to be a lot of comers and goers on Friday, and without a lot of room, there's going to be a lot of bumpers tangling. That's for sure.
Yeah. Are you guys top 8 now, right, for round 2 for Cup Series?
Yes, I believe that for the Cup Series, it was 12. They eliminated 4. Then I think they're going to eliminate 2, and then go to round 3. Well, if this is round 3, then we've got to eliminate 4. I think it goes 12 to 8 to 6 to 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Hold on.
I would have to look that up.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it right now. So Cup Series, you guys are in round 2 with Bristol being the first race.
Right. So then it's going to go. We went from 12 to 8, I think, or maybe we've trimmed it to 10. I see.
I think it's 8.
I don't even keep up with the points myself.
No, you're good.
For me, these series are all about fun. I've won a few races. I've won enough. It's really my focus is about having fun, enjoying the event, enjoying the spectacle of having our own little mini cup race, our little moment every week, or 3 times a week in that case. That's what's really important to me. I'm not worried about the points myself.
Yeah, I would say you're pretty comfortable. Looks like sitting in, so you're good right now. It's gonna be interesting to see with Josh taking the weekend off, where he's gonna fall in the Cup Series points.
And I know that there's some mulligans where they get points that are equivalent to a last place finish, but what's really important in the NASCAR series is running the full season.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I didn't even win a race in, I believe, 2 of the 3 series in this season, and I comfortably made the playoffs in all 3. It's really about your attendance.
Yeah, for sure. Attendance and then just finishing well. You don't even have to win every race. You just need to finish well, which is the good thing. That's what I love about racing NASCAR is that you don't always have to win every race. You can literally, if you have top 5 after top 5, if you're consistent, you can run away with it, which is the cool thing to see.
No doubt.
So we touched on the Truck Series Cup. How about the Xfinity Series races this Saturday? Where are they at?
And see, I don't remember because the series are kind of off sync from each other.
Yeah.
Usually the intention is for us to run, if we can, run the same track Saturday, then Tuesday, then Friday, so that we don't have consecutive races between Friday and Saturday at the same track. It doesn't always work out, though, and I think our intention next season is to definitely blend up the races so that we're not accidentally running the same track 3 times in 7 days.
Yeah.
So I guess you would have to look up the schedule. I'm not able to look up the schedule right now. I feel like
I'm looking at it. So race 3 was Road America in round 1, or
we've
race
already gone
1.
through that.
Okay, Kansas.
We just did Kansas in the Light Series.
Okay, so you're at Chicago.
Next? Oh, Chicago.
Yep, Chicago
Probably
for race 2.
Arguably the best intermediate track among the recent NASCAR games. Very bumpy.
Is that a high side track?
I still think that you can run the bottom.
Okay.
That Kansas is generally more of a high side track.
Yeah.
Chicago, it's still kind of a big, tight drafting race, but it's a lot of fun for sure. It's one of probably my favorite shape when it comes to the actual design of any of the intermediate tracks.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is I know for us on iRacing, it's one of my favorite tracks for intermediate for sure because it's actually one of our multi-group tracks where you can run the bottom and you can also run the high side against the wall like that Kyle Larson line that you see. So that's kind of the cool thing I like about Chicago. So it's interesting, always to see from, I guess, series to series and game to game is what is the difference, between each game, and it's kind of cool to see like how it is.
Yes, definitely. The Heat is mostly the low groove, single groove racetrack. It's actually good that you brought up being able to use multiple grooves on iRacing, because I know that iRacing has struggled from a physics perspective of getting two grooves to work. It's just so difficult to
Yeah,
replicate in a game, or a simulator, I should say,
yeah,
because of just how complex it is and how the lines can change within the course of an hour. You'll see in real NASCAR races, when it gets cold, the track usually becomes a single groove racetrack, and usually it's one extreme or the other, all the way at the top or all the way at the bottom. Whereas in the sunshine, you generally have more flexibility with your lines, and you
yeah,
have more versatile setups in the sunshine.
yeah. And you see that on the iRacing side of it for sure, is what you just talked about. So it's kind of cool thing too. Um, Going on. So what else do we need to talk about for you? I'm drawing blanks.
I don't know if I don't know if you guys need to go over iRacing. I don't know much of anything about the current iRacing gig, or even which series. Is it super late models that's going on right now?
Super late models is going on. We were in our off week, so this coming Monday we are going to be at Richmond, which should be a fun track. Richmond is a basically a little bit. So with super late models, it's a short track style car. So even though
Right.
Richmond is considered a short track in NASCAR standards, for these cars it's kind of a little bit bigger. So it's going to be run more like, I would say, like a mile or a mile and a half on the NASCAR side of it, just because these things don't have as much horsepower that a NASCAR produces. So it makes it fun. These cars definitely are short track racing cars. It's going to be interesting to see because on Richmond for NASCAR on iRacing it's a track that is pretty good for about 5 to 10 laps, and then the track continuously starts to get looser and looser and looser as the run goes on, and at some points you just can't help but almost spin out coming out of the corners. So it's a very nutritious track. You got to keep your tires on you and not overheat them. If you overheat them, you're going to end up spinning out, and you're going to be in the probably the front stretch where you don't want to be. You know, that's a cool thing I like about iRacing is you kind of are rewarded for saving your tires, or you can either abuse them and you're not going to be very rewarded. I've been on the receiving hands both ends, so it's interesting to see, for sure. Um, Trying to
Do you
think.
guys have like any sort of strategies for trying to recool your tires once they've kind of overheated already in iRacing, or is it kind of you're basically pooched once they're overheated?
um, Depends on how severe it is. You're pretty much pooched if you start burning the right rears and you're sliding the back end out every corner. You're kind of at a disadvantage for sure. One of the things I do is typically I've been up front for most of these SLM races, so a lot of times when I get up in the lead, I take it easy. I back up my corners, making sure I'm not sliding the tires in, and then just kind of roll through the throttle in the middle of the corner and then just roll out of it very easy. So I'm not abusing the tires as much as I should be. It's really good to do when I'm in the lead just because I don't have to deal with I'm not going to try to outrun somebody by 2 to 3 seconds. I don't see the point in that. So I like to keep my competition a little bit closer to me. So it makes me save my tires, and then if they do start picking it up, I have enough tires to at least go a little bit quicker and just outrun them then at that point. So like I said, the easy thing about like keeping your tires on you is basically you just gotta back up your corners, and just throttle control off the corner will help you tremendously keep your tires on you. I don't know if that answered that for you.
Yeah. Do you generally like if you have the lead and you're kind of managing it? Do you ever find like by the time a guy pushes hard enough to kind of catch you, he's kind of just basically overheated his tires, and then he kind of hits that lower bit of air when he's just basically stuck there behind you, and he doesn't really have anything left to really make the pass?
Yeah, so a lot of times like once I notice that if they get to my bumper, I'll just start outrunning them completely because they've already used up their tires to get to me at that point. So there's really no point. Like, once that happens, there's really like I can just drive off again. So that's kind of the cool thing about it is It's just watching how people like use their tires up. I mean, some people can do it really well. Justin Krasinski's actually one of the better ones for outrunning somebody in the lead. He's done it to me where I'm just like, how the heck did he not like burn up his tires catching me? But he's really good at that. So there's some guys that can do a little bit better than others. It's just the whole finding out how to use your tires. Obviously not basically the way you run your wheel is you don't want to yank it to the side. You just want to kind of be nice and smooth with your wheel, and that's kind of what Megan talked about last week with how Chad runs. And it's you have to run like that even on iRacing, or else you're eating up your tires a lot more.
Yeah, you need to like lead in as smoothly as you can.
Yep.
Are you like pretty susceptible and to like an undercut or something like that? Like if a guy comes up behind you and completely uses up his tires, obviously a pit, he'd be probably a lap down or two down.
Yeah.
Would does he basically come back? Once you've kind of pitted.
Yeah. So like a lot of times, like if they wear out their tires, then it's just one of the things. Like we don't have a lot of pit stops on iRacing, just because the series we run in the amount of fuel, so you actually won't get that. But a lot of times we do get quite a bit more cautions than you probably do see on road series. So the cautions kind of make it interesting. So a lot of times with this SLM car, you almost sometimes don't have to take tires. Just depending on the track. Some tracks wear tires more than others. Richmond would definitely be a track where you want tires advantage. But I've won Concord on old tires on. I had 60 lap old tires on my left sides, and I won that way. And the same I did on the first track that we ran, South Boston. I had about 50 lap old tires. So tires can mean a lot. It just depends, but definitely the pit stops make it really challenging because if you're on old tires versus new tires, that new tires has an advantage, and you're kind of slowing that guy up if you're on old tires in front of you. But if you're able to keep it, if you're able to run a defensive line, it's sometimes a lot harder to pass you than it seems.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Um, So yeah, we're doing that. Richmond's this week. We have one more race after that, which will be at Southern National, which will round out the series. It was just a 5 race series. Currently, I am in the lead over Andrew Rucker by about 25 points. So I have a pretty comfortable lead. These next 2 races, I've won 3 out of the 3 races. The next couple races, I'm just gonna try to do points racing. I don't really need the battle for a win because obviously I don't want to get wrecked out and basically cost myself a championship. So I'm just gonna kind of take it easy. If I get another win, I get another win, but I'm not gonna fight somebody over it. That's just stupid at this point.
Yeah, you gotta definitely play it smart near the end. I have a bad habit of just almost getting suckered into racing somebody when I really should be thinking smart and just basically either doing damage control or just maximizing the amount of points that I'm can make in that race versus how many I'm really bound to lose if I crash out or have a spin.
Oh yeah, me too. Trust me, I've been there on the receiving end of that many times. It's definitely pretty hard when you're kind of a competitive guy and you're trying to run it easy. It sometimes doesn't always pay off for you. With that being said, the last update is we are going to be starting up the truck series in August. So it's is a $5 buy-in. Chad has. It's going to go towards the broadcast and then obviously hosting the events going on too, which will be pretty cool. I think it's about pretty sure it's 20 races. No championship, what we talked about. So it's going to be a straight 20 race. You get 2 mulligan races, so you'll have 2 drop races, which is kind of cool and interesting to see how that's going to work. Like we talked about, basically you have every style track in this truck series. So you're going to have a couple road courses on there. You'll have a dirt, and you have a lot of short tracks, a lot of intermediates, and you have a lot of super speedways too. So it's definitely a very versatile schedule that you're going to see this year, which is pretty fun for me. I like to see us do some road courses just because road courses and stock cars are pretty fun and come out to be pretty interesting races just because they're not the greatest handling vehicles on a road course. Since I have been diving into iRacing a little bit more and doing the road course drive, like road course races with actual road course cars, is trust me, stock cars are not the best thing to drive on a road course.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, a lot of weight and not a lot of aero to really help you turn the car in.
Yeah, it's a car that doesn't want to turn already, so it's like I said, I've been racing a lot of IMSA races recently, and driving a Porsche or a Ford GT versus that, it's just like, man, this thing drives so much easier. It's ridiculous. It's almost actually harder to drive a freaking stock car than it is one of those that is faster.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely pretty interesting though, to say the least. So that's the schedule we have going on. Like I said, starting in August, it'll be a few weeks after the super late model ends. It'll be Mondays again, and then we are in the works of having another league start up, and it would be next year in January. We're in the talks still, not fully decided, but it looks like it's gonna be a pretty interesting league to say the least. It'll be on Sundays too for that. So that's kind of the updates from iRacing so far this week. We'll have more obviously once we get the recap going of next week and after Richmond. It should be pretty interesting to say the least. With that, we're at any final thoughts from you guys before we end tonight's show?
No, other than we got Le Mans, I believe, on this Sunday. We're going to do prototypes again in the GTE, so we'll probably all stream that if anybody wants
Is
to
guys
take
hear
a
me?
look at that.
Yeah, I can hear you. Is this Sunday?
There's a lot of different things going on right now.
Yeah, I believe
A lot
so.
of things to say. Thanks for doing this again, guys, and have a good night.
Awesome. Dude, what were you saying about Spa?
Le Mans, I believe we have Le Mans on the prototype series for this Sunday, so I'll be streaming that if anybody wants to take a look at that.
Yeah, what time is it?
I believe it's a 5:30 start
5:30
Eastern.
Eastern. Ah, dang, these times. That should be a fun one though, for sure to
That's
see
what
that.
I've been saying.
What the times? I know. I'm like, man, I just get off work at 6:30. I'd love to do that.
I mean, I understand why Chad does it, though.
I
A lot
know.
of European guys got to get to bed.
Yeah.
But part of why I don't run the Sunday endurance series is because sometimes the NASCAR Cup Series race in real life doesn't finish before it.
Oh yeah.
I did run a full season this last time around and almost won the championship in my class simply for just showing up. That series is so much fun. The day to night transition races, like the full 24 hours of Le Mans, the Rolex 24 simulation is absolutely gorgeous. Probably my favorite. That dawn to 10 a.m. window at Daytona is just so beautiful, and I just love everything about that series. It's just that the start time is geared more towards the Europeans, and it works. That series always gets good crowds.
Oh yeah. That would definitely be a fun series. Well, I know this isn't a elite thing topic, but I'll just say for anyone that's in elite racing that likes road course racing, I put together a road team for August 18th through the 19th, which is going to be the 24 hours of Le Mans on iRacing. And I will be doing a 24-hour stream during that time. So it'll be pretty interesting to watch. You guys can watch my stream and you can watch us try to take on the massive Le Mans for 24 hours in a Ford GT. We have about 5 drivers doing it, so that just tells you how intense this race is.
That's going to be awesome.
Wow.
Please make sure that you share that link with us.
Oh yeah,
I
I will
definitely
for
want
Yeah,
to
sure.
see
definitely looking
as
forward
much
to
of
that.
that as I can. Endurance racing is, I've really learned how to enjoy endurance racing as a guy who was all NASCAR for 10 plus years. I've really learned how to enjoy endurance racing, and I'm branching out. Endurance racing is so cool, and I definitely want to see that stream.
Yeah, I'm the same way as you, Meg. I've always been a NASCAR guy and just recently got in the road series stuff, and it's actually really fun, and I definitely respect the people that do it. So it's definitely really interesting to see and to be a part of actually for the first time. All right, with that, guys, I think we are all set. So we will see ya later.
Thank you, guys.